Hi everyone, I am Sagita, one of your customer success managers.
And I'm Mohammed, also part of the customer success team. Sangeeta and I have spending a lot of time talking to teams, managers, HR leaders, and individual contributors across different organizations. And the one thing that we find common when we start talking to them is like the feeling of being busy but not always being aligned.
On point, I think your people are working hard, you have back to back meetings, your slacks never quit. But when we ask them a very simple question of if things are moving forward, there's always a quiet pause. So, which is why we've been digging a lot of research on Reddit, and we found dozens of posts which explains this exact same scenario.
Right. So I've been doing some basic Reddit digging for the past few weeks, and I've been seeing very candid conversations from managers and employees dealing with this exact situation. Misalignment, feedbacks coming late, and one-on-ones which aren't very useful, if that's what they say. So these are real scenarios from real people from teams like yours and us.
So, today, this is exactly what we are going to walk you through, what we are actually seeing in the field, the real life stories, and most importantly, the three systems that are actually going to help you move your team from busy to aligned.
So we've got something for you great in store. Let's get started.
Awesome. So let's start with something very simple. Be honest. How many of you feel your team is busy all day, but at the end of the week, you're not always sure if the right things move forward?
So can we get a hands up if y'all have been there also? Because I'll admit I was there before. There were back-to-back meetings coming in, non-stop Slack communication, and everyone in my team looked very busy. But focus, that's where things started slipping here.
So just last week, someone on Reddit captured this perfectly. So they said I was busy all day, but nothing got important done. Eventually, I realized something simple, which is being busy is not the same as being focused.
I think that's it, right? You're drained, but you can't point to what exactly got done. And that's what today is about. No productivity hacks, not on how to work harder, but answering a very real question leaders are asking right now. Why are my teams losing focus and how do we fix this?
So before we dive deeper into this, let's take a quick pause here. So which of these resonates most with your team right now? So you can let us know in the poll that is going to show up for you guys on the screen.
So as you're voting, we'll give our feedback on. Perfect. So I believe that most of you have chosen A and B. Yes, trust me, you're not alone. So according to our research, we researched around Gallup, which is a global analytics and research firm that surveys around millions of employees worldwide every year to understand the engagement, pulse, and the clarity of workforce performance. And the latest findings in 2025 show that around 46% of workers strongly agree that they know what's expected of them. And here's the concerning part, the number has been dipping down since 2020. So, when priorities aren't crystal clear, knowledge workers spend around an average of 19% of their time, nearly one full day per week, just hunting down information that they need to do in their jobs. So, Sangeeta, let me throw you a real scenario at you. A manager recently told me, hey, my team is working very hard and they are doing all the tasks, but they're pulling from different directions. What's going on here?
I think most of the time your goals exist, but they are scattered, right? Your company goals are on a deck, your team goals are on a dock, but your individual goals are not really focused on. So this plays out constantly. And one product manager on Reddit described this that each department has its own interpretation of what's more critical. Your sales wants new feature to close deals, your marketing wants positioning, your engineering wants to stabilize. Every of these perspective is valid, right? So the deadlines start to blur and the priorities they shift, and I think this is where people start to second guess the decisions that they've already made.
Absolutely. See, they are working hard, but they're working on different things. And here's where Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, becomes very relevant. He says, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And this can also relate to teams. If you don't define what matters the most, everyone will start filling the gap with their own ideas and interpretations. And that's where you end up with a great effort, but which is not giving any impact.
So I feel the fix isn't just motivation, right? It's more clarity. But here's the thing, clarity alone isn't going to be enough if you don't have enough feedback to keep your team aligned or on track. And I think that's where the next challenge comes in. And this is again another thing that I hear a lot is by the time we give feedback, it's already too late. So feedback becomes more reactive or only when there is something that breaks. But without regular feedback, your people don't know if they are on the right track or if their work even matters. And I think this is when your motivation starts to quietly drop. So we found dozens of Reddit posts from employees who were blindsided by your annual reviews. So one person said that I thought me and my team had an amazing year. I rated myself as exceeds expectation. Then my leader told me that it did not meet expectation. I think when I asked for examples, they couldn't provide any.
Because Sangeeta, if you're hearing about problems months after they happen, you can't do anything about it. And this is where Oliver Berkman in his book 4000 Weeks writes the same. That we need to stop treating feedback like it's optional or something we'll get to it later. He says we have limited time, about 4000 weeks in a lifetime. We can't afford to waste weeks or months waiting for annual reviews to tell people how they're doing. Feedback needs to happen while it still matters. So far, we talked about how lack of clarity in goals and delayed feedbacks can really throw a team off track. But there's another key identifier that is also very important to discuss about is one-on-ones. So let me ask you this, Sangeeta: how many one-on-ones of yours have turned into a status update?
I think earlier, most of them, or they just got cancelled, or they were driven by whatever, had to be fixed or whatever popped in that particular week.
So a tech lead on Reddit described this the same. We have also the screenshot on the screen that after nearly a year of my one-on-ones, my top performer used this time for a small talk, which is nice, but it's not the point. And my low performing team member just say, hey, everything is fine. Now, since they don't seek feedback and I'm not their direct career manager, I don't bring up performance concerns here directly.
And I think this is, what happens. Your employees stop using your one-on-ones for clarity or growth. So they become more like another meeting to just sit through.
Absolutely. So here's the thing, it's not because the manager doesn't care, it's because there is no structure, there is no agenda for this shared purpose, or there is no action point that we have to discuss in the meetings. So with this, we come back to our next poll. How often does your one-on-one actually move the needle in employee development? We've given you some bunch of options, choose them, and we'll give you answer on based on.
I think this poll is also going to tell us what effective one-on-ones actually look like versus what most of us are experiencing, right?
Perfect. So I think we have the results here.
Yeah.
For most of you have, I see that you have chosen C and D. You you are absolutely right. Here's the reality check. According to study, it shows that around 89% of managers and 73% of employees believe that one-on-ones positively impact their team performance. But here's the gap. It's only true when it's done right. Absolutely there.
That's absolutely right, Mo. And I think there is also one more thing which is going to connect or tie all of this together, right? Which is context switching. Even like when people know what to do, they're jumping between so many things that they can't actually do any of them well.
Absolutely. So I think one of the screenshot that you see, we have one red post which says, hey, it's not burnout, it's context switching. The project manager says that, hey, my team members are managing multiple responsibilities simultaneously, tackling project A in the morning, addressing urgent matters from project B, reviewing feedbacks of project C during lunch. Now, this constant switching isn't just changing tasks, it involves mental gear shifting repeatedly, and each transition comes with an unseen cost. Can we get a thumbs up if you think that it's also happening in your organization? Because we recently, when you identify the data, according to Cal Newport in his book Deep Work, focused work requires at least 90 minutes of uninterrupted time. But an average knowledge worker today, they're lucky even if they get 30 minutes of uninterrupted time without the next Slack ping or meetings comes out. So we've optimized like constant availability with instead of actual productivity.
So if your focus is breaking down because of your misalignment, your delayed feedback, weak conversation, and constant context switching, what's actually going to fix this? So this is where systems matter more than motivation.
Yeah. So high performance team don't rely on constant motivation. They rely on system that clearly define goals by identifying the data and have a clarity by default.
And I think this is where Thrive Sparrow comes into picture, right? So these systems come down to three things working together, which is your goals, your feedback, and one-on-ones.
Not as a separate process, but as a one connected experience that keeps everyone aligned without adding more work. So Sangeeta, let's go back to the first scenario.
Yeah.
How does goal in Thrive Sparrow help here? So I'll actually also showcase a video simultaneously while we are because that this is how the data shows here at the same time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think the key is connection here more. So in Thrive Sparrow, goals aren't just set, right? They are linked. So as you can see on the screen, your organization goals are going to be connected to your team goals, and then the team goals are then going to be connected to your individual goals.
Absolutely. So here the employers do not have any question that how are they aligned to the organization. They know that they are working for a bigger picture here. And managers get an idea of, hey, which is the employee, what is the task that they're prioritizing on, and what is the task that is not being prioritized. So in this screenshot, you see that, hey, this is at risk. And that is why they can take accountability. Hey, this is something that we need to prioritize. So with goals, you get less busy work, you get faster prioritization, clear ownership, and a very shared definition of success. And with this, you get entire data of, hey, how is the goal working out? When we see in the screenshot, we can see when you go out, you see a whole org chart where how the goals are aligned. At the same time, you can see a normal way also where each employee goals can be easily listed here.
And I think here's how your team can track progress without micromanagement, right? Just visibility into what is that is going to matter. You can see just at a glance, is your team aligned or is something shifting? So let's get back to the next topic here. So let's talk about feedback and why does continuous feedback matter so much for focus here?
Because I think Sangeeta, feedback talks about goals talk about basically what I have to do, but feedback gives you an idea of what is whatever that you're doing, is it right or is there something needs to change here.
Exactly. So remember those stories when people were blindsided in their reviews, right? So that doesn't happen when you have feedback is continuous. So one person said this perfectly on Reddit. You should never be blindsided by a performance review. So every time you hear whatever you hear should be expected well in advance.
Absolutely. And in Thrive Sparrow, the feedback is ongoing. Let me show you how it works. So here, feedbacks can be tied directly to your goals or any other external work that you do. You can just give feedbacks or also as an employee receive ask for feedback, request for feedbacks. A manager can ask, hey, this is on that client presentation yesterday. Here's what went well. This is something that we have to do. And this is something that we like to adjust the next time.
I think this also helps your people to get feedback while it's still relevant, right? And with the 360-degree feedback, your employees get perspective beyond just their managers. So they get feedback from their peers, their cross-functional team, or whoever has relevant input for them so that it's more balanced and useful, right?
Absolutely. So this is what I also used recently in my very current experience there, where I conducted a very detailed presentation for a client, where my manager was also present, and I conducted and I went ahead and requested the feedback from my manager asking how it went by, and that is where they gave me also detailed feedback. Here, this is what we were expecting, and this is what it went right. At the same time, you have an idea of, hey, I know what I'm doing. When a manager tells me after months, hey, this not went right, I cannot make changes and the damage is done before that.
Yeah.
So Angela, so we have two ideas. We have goals and feedbacks.
Yeah.
How does let's come back to one-on-ones. So in Thrive Sparrow, how does one-on-one work here exactly?
So one-on-ones are basically so you can have real conversations with your managers, right? Your employees bring their progress on goals. The manager brings feedback they have observed. So together you can ask, are we still aligned? Are there any blockers? Or what do you need from me, right?
Absolutely. So in one-on-ones in Thrive Sparrow, you can set up the data, you can choose a bi-weekly meeting, and you can have the action point. So here the one-on-ones are not very disorganized, but here they have shared agenda, shared items that they have to discuss. And based on that, you can see what the agenda points are. You can have the action points agenda also on that based on what happened after the meeting, what do you have to do after the meeting with a due date signed. So in feedback in one-on-ones, you can also have the goal setup where based on the goals you can have the conversations here. So this is where the strategy this is basically by one-on-one you have very fewer surprises, you have a healthier workload boundaries and a stronger manager effectiveness where you get also high retention. So this is how one-on-one also ties with the rest of the two matters here.
Perfect. That's good. Amazing. More. So one final question before we wrap up here. If you could fix one thing on your team right now, which would move the needle most? So we have a poll. We'll give few more seconds for you guys to choose the poll.
Perfect.
Perfect. I think we have the poll results here. And I can clearly see that most of you have picked A, which is clearer connected goals, which is your top priority. You're focusing on the foundation for your team, right? This also aligns with the Gallup research, which confirms that knowing what your people expect has the strongest link to productivity and retention.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what you have said. So I believe, Sangeeta, if we connect the dots, goals give us direction, feedback keeps teams aligned, and one-on-ones make it human, right?
And I think that's what makes, or that's what happens when you stop relying on individual willpower and start building systems that, protect focus. So it's not about working harder, it's about working with a system that actually supports your people.
And if there's one key takeaway today, it's this: that teams do not lose focus because they don't care. They lose focus because the clarity breakdown. You don't need 100 of anonymous posts on Reddit or any other platform to understand what your people are going through. You need a system that keeps you connected to them. And if that's kind of workplace you want to build, one where people just don't show up but actually feel aligned, supported, and seen, then I think Thrive Sparrow is worth a conversation, right?
Absolutely, Mo. So, if you would like to see how this could work for your team, and we'll be very happy to walk you through your use cases, your shared best practices, and also run a focus demo for you guys.
Perfect. Now, I think we can just jump on the Q&A here.
Q&A,
We'd
yes.
love to hear your question. Please feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. Sangeeta and I are here. So, we've been asked how often should we be giving feedback without overwhelming people? Sangeeta, you want to take care of that?
Sure. I think in most teams, the shift from too much feedback to more, it's from like once a year to little and often. What works best is short, specific feedback close to the work, anchored to your goals or real situations. And I think a mix of positive reinforcement and, course correction as well. The research shows that weekly or bi weekly feedback is where engagement really starts to improve, especially when it's two-way, not just, top down.
Absolutely. And it just feedback is ideally just to give, okay, hey, if this is some, it can be transactional where if there's some event has occurred or if there's a presentation, it should be within that period where they don't feel if there's a important data that needs to be given out, it should be within that period also. So we got one more question. Say we've been asked that we are already using OKR. How is this different? OKRs are great. You have probably your OKRs are set in sheets or you have a different system that takes care of it. But in many teams, we see that it always stays in the deck or it's only visited once a quarter. But we're talking about system where goals are visible day to day. They can track data from the task that they have to do, and they have a connected from the company level. They know that how their work as an individual is contributing to a higher management level, to the organization level, and they can regularly revisit them based aligned with the one-on-ones in the feedback. So it's less another framework, but more of that the goals you have already actually drives the team to decision making and focus here. Feel free to head over to thrivespiral.com to learn more.